The next video is called The Indelicate Investigation. The most famous CrimCon case of the 19th century was brought against Princess Caroline of Brunswick-Luneburg by her husband, the Prince Regent, later George IV. It resulted in 52 days of the salacious testimony before the House of Lords in 1820s. While the British public relished every sort of detail, observers on the continent were shocked. The Danish writer Georg Brandes called it an incredible scandal which flowed like a sewer from the floor of the House of Lords and sank the lustre of the crown and the fair name of the reigning family in a sea of mud. As Prince of Wales, George had numerous affairs and had lived with Catholic divorcee Mrs. Maria Fitzherbert, who bore him 10 children. But when his profligacy resulted in financial difficulties, his father George III promised to help him out, provided he marry a foreign princess and produce an heir. Princess Caroline of Brunswick was selected. The marriage was a disaster from the beginning. George hiccuped throughout the wedding ceremony, and that night got so drunk that he slept with his head in the fireplace. He did his duty, though. The following morning, to everyone's surprise, Caroline gave birth to a daughter, Princess Charlotte, 9 months later. To all intents and purposes, the marriage was over. Caroline had moved to Blackheath. There, according to Lady Hester Stanhope, she had become a downright whore. She was frequently closeted with young men. In her front room, she had a Chinese clockwork figure that, when you wound it up, made gross sexual movements, and she liked to dance around showing off a good deal of her body. Her partner in crime was Lady Douglas, who had been shunned by polite society for having an affair with her husband's commanding officer, Sir Sidney Smith. Not only did Lady Douglas take lovers whenever she felt like it, she also slept with Caroline. When the two of them fell out, Caroline sent Lady Douglas's husband, Sir John Douglas, an obscene drawing showing his wife making love to Sir Sidney Smith. Rumours flew that a 4-year-old boy in their circle named William Austen was Caroline's son by Prince Louis Ferdinand of Prussia. This caused such a scandal that the Privy Council set up a committee to look into the Princess of Wales's behaviour. It was called the Delicate Investigation. The commission investigated every sort of detail of the goings-on in Blackheath. Of particular public interest was her relationship with Captain Manby, a naval officer who was a frequent visitor. However, on the substantive charge that she had a love child, Caroline was exonerated, and Lady Douglas, who had started the rumour, was found guilty of perjury. In 1814, Caroline left England and started a scandalous progress across Europe. She had begun by dancing topless at a ball in Geneva, given in her honour. In Naples, she had an affair with Napoleon's brother-in-law, King Joachim. In Milan, she took up with Bartolomeo Pagani, known as Pagani in England, a former quartermaster in Napoleon's Italian army. They had travelled around Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East together as man and wife before setting up home in Como. With her own reputation in tatters, Caroline tried to ruin her daughters too. Charlotte had been strictly brought up by her maiden aunts in Windsor, but when she visited her mother, Caroline locked the young virgin in a room with Captain Hesse, who was said to be the illegitimate son of the Duke of York, who was her uncle and one of Caroline's own lovers. In 1820, George III died and the Prince Regent came to the throne as George IV. Caroline was now seen as a threat, a ready focus for public animosity towards a spendthrift new king. George IV offered her £50,000 a year if she promised to remain abroad, but Caroline now considered herself Queen of England and was determined to be crowned in Westminster Abbey alongside her husband. She returned to England and was immediately arrested and arraigned before the House of Lords for a most unbecoming and degrading intimacy with a foreigner of low station, Pagani. A bill of pains and penalties was drawn up, which George hoped would dissolve their marriage on the grounds of adultery. The matter was debated in lascivious detail by the House of Lords from 19th of August to 10th of November 1820. The newspapers lapped it up. Witnesses were called, including servants from Caroline's own household. They said they had seen Caroline and Pagani naked together. Pagani had been seen caressing Caroline's breasts and her inner thigh. They had slept together. He was frequently seen naked or semi-naked in her bedroom and was present when she took a bath. Then there were those telltale stains. It seemed an open and shut case. However, George IV had not taken into account the power of public opinion. Naturally, the public had lapped up every juicy detail of the case, but people also knew what the king had been up to and widely believed that what was sauce for the goose was sauce for the gander. The Duke of Wellington was stopped by a mob in London who shouted, "God save the Queen." "Well, gentlemen, since you'll have it so," said the Iron Duke, "God save the Queen, and may all your wives be like her." Caroline found that she was cheered by crowds when she travelled daily from her new home in Brennenburg House, Hammersmith, to the Houses of Parliament. The crowds of her supporters there were so huge that a stout timber fence had to be built around the House of Lords. She frequently dozed off during the proceedings, and when she was asked whether she had ever committed adultery, she said only when she slept with Mrs. Fitzherbert's husband. In the end, the bill was passed with a majority of just 9. But the matter had become a cause célèbre. To save further embarrassment, the government discreetly dropped it, rather than take it forward to the House of Commons. One contemporary satirist wrote, "Most gracious Queen, we thee implore to go away and sin no more, or if that effort to be too great, go away at any rate." But she wouldn't. At the coronation on 19th of July 1821, Queen Caroline turned up at Westminster Abbey uninvited, and the doors were slammed in her face. She fell ill and died 19 days later.